Welcome to this explainer. Right now, we're setting the stage for a seriously dramatic, high-stakes financial battle over the very soul of the world's most popular sport. We're going to look at a secret proposal that literally almost reshaped global football overnight, sparked a massive international rebellion, and threatened to take down the most powerful man in the sport. All right, let's just dive right in. I want you to think about a truly staggering number, $7 to $9 million. That was the estimated cost for television advertising slots during a very specific, brand new window at the 2026 World Cup. But what exactly were these advertisers paying for? Well, they were paying for water breaks. Seriously, mandatory hydration breaks happening exactly at the 22-minute mark of both halves. And what's kind of wild here is that these stoppages were enforced even in perfectly climate-controlled stadiums with closed roofs. Players, like Dutch captain Virgil van Dijk, called it out right away, and football purists were absolutely furious. They argued it completely ruined the natural flow of the game. But broadcasters like Fox Sports saw a gold mine. They squeezed ads right into these pauses, basically turning a 3-minute water break into Super Bowl-level TV real estate. So this small, highly controversial rule change actually signaled a massive pivot toward total commercialization. Which brings us to part one of our story. The 2026 commercial boom, and football's financial zenith. You see, that whole frustration over the hydration breaks, that was just one tiny piece of a much larger financial puzzle. Between 2023 and 2026, FIFA projected an absolutely record-breaking $15 billion revenue cycle. During the North American tournament, they maximized profits and pushed commercial boundaries like we had never seen before. I mean, they introduced dynamic ticket pricing, meaning costs fluctuated with demand, which obviously led to record high prices for everyday fans. We also saw the very first World Cup halftime show, bringing in those big American-style entertainment elements. And behind the scenes, FIFA leadership was already pushing hard for a massive 64-team tournament for 2030. Reaching this unprecedented financial peak clearly emboldened leadership to try and make an even bigger move. And that leads right into part two, the $20 billion pitch, and the creation of FFE. So picture this. It's July 28th, 2026. They're still riding high off the massive success of the World Cup final just 9 days prior when an explosive announcement suddenly leaks out. FIFA was proposing a brand new commercial subsidiary to manage all of its global competition rights. They called it FIFA Forward Enterprise, or FFE for short. Now, the absolutely crucial thing to understand here is what this was actually designed to do. Working with some of the biggest financial advisors on the planet, like JP Morgan, FFE was crafted to take literally all the money-making parts of FIFA's not-for-profit operations. We're talking the World Cup, the Club World Cup, broadcasting, sponsorships, ticketing, the whole shebang, and spin them off into this brand new entity. And the valuation? A breathtaking $20 billion. Okay, so here is how they actually plan to carve that up. FIFA would retain an 80% controlling interest, but that remaining 20%, that was going to be sold off to private equity. That's a move expected to raise $4.2 billion in upfront cash. Now sure, private equity has become pretty normal in European club football lately, but selling off a stake in the actual World Cup itself, that was previously thought to be totally unthinkable. And the proposed anchor investor for that 20% minority stake was a firm called Thrive Eternal. Now this group is led by Joshua Kushner, whose brother, Jared, happens to be the son-in-law of former US President Donald Trump. And just to set the scene a bit more, at the time, FIFA President Gianni Infantino had literally just watched the July 19 World Cup final sitting right alongside Donald Trump. So it was against this specific backdrop that this massive corporate restructuring was quietly taking shape. Let's move to part three, buying the federations and following the money trail. Remember, FIFA is effectively owned by its 211 member associations under Swiss law. To spin off the World Cup's commercial rights, Infantino needed their votes. So how on earth do you sell a $20 billion structural change to the entire world? Well, you show them the money. Under the current cycle, member federations get about $10 million. But under this new FFE pitch, if they accepted the deal by a super tight September 19 deadline, they'd get an immediate $20 million upfront payment. And then that number would just keep climbing, up to $22 million for the next cycle and hitting $24 million by 2038. Now, why this matters so much is all about perspective. You really have to contrast the impact of these payouts. For a tiny federation, say Andorra, Montserrat, or Papua New Guinea, $20 million is absolutely game-changing money. It builds whole stadiums and training centers. But for the massive football powers out there, countries like England, Spain, or France, $20 million is practically a rounding error. They have much, much deeper pockets and completely different priorities. And it was exactly that disconnect where this grand plan hit a massive brick wall. Which takes us to part 4, the global backlash and a line crossed. Because almost immediately after those FFB plans leaked, the proposal faced immense, unified, and honestly furious resistance from the global football community. The pushback wasn't just a tiny ripple, it was a tidal wave. European football's governing body, UEFA, did not mince their words. They released a blistering statement calling this, quote, a line that football's governing institutions should never cross. And they firmly stated that the sport was simply not FIFA's to sell. And they didn't just complain about it either. European nations, whose teams, let's be real, drive the massive revenues of the World Cup, actively threatened to boycott all FIFA competitions if this plan actually went through. And this opposition spanned multiple continents. Sheikh Salman, the president of the Asian Football Confederation, slammed the severe lack of consultation. He called it totally unacceptable and warned that without the support of all the confederations, which clearly did not exist here, the initiative was going to fail. Soon enough, global leagues and players' unions quickly joined the chorus of rejection. To really put this into perspective, observers immediately started comparing this backlash to the 2021 European Super League fiasco. If you remember that whole mess, fans basically revolted overnight to kill off a closed-shop tournament for elite clubs. Well, this FFI proposal touched that exact same nerve. Fans and federations firmly believe the World Cup belongs to them. It's supposed to be about glory, right? Not private equity dividends. But what makes this story even wilder is that the rebellion wasn't just happening externally. Infantino was facing severe pushback right from inside his own inner circle. His senior advisor, former Goldman Sachs banker Carlos Cordeo, outright resigned, calling FFE a genuinely bad deal. Even FIFA's chief operating officer, Kevin Lawmore, issued a stinging public statement defending his colleagues, basically daring his own boss to fire him. So very quickly, Infantino was looking incredibly isolated. So here we are at part 5. The project collapses as Icarus falls. With Europe threatening a full-on boycott and his own senior staff in open revolt, the situation became completely untenable. The rapid unraveling of this FIFA-forward enterprise and Infantino's forced retreat is a truly breathtaking timeline. On July 19th, Infantino was out there on the pitch at MetLife Stadium, handing out medals at a wildly successful World Cup final, looking completely untouchable. Fast forward to July 28th, and the FFE plans leak to the Times. Over the next few days, global backlash and boycott threats absolutely erupt. And then, by early August, Infantino was forced to completely scrap the entire $20 billion proposal. In just a matter of weeks, this project went from a secret masterstroke to absolute dust. Now, let's contrast the official PR spin with the actual reporting on the ground. When he finally withdrew the plan, Infantino's face-saving statement claimed that the project, created divisions that were no longer in the interest of strengthening football. Sure. But reporting from the Times suggested a massive, deeply personal motivation lingering beneath the surface. The spinoff seemed highly designed to create a cushy post-presidency commissioner role for Infantino in 2031, potentially paying him up to $64 million a year. For context, that is very comparable to what NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell makes. And that leads us right to the ongoing repercussions we're seeing today. Infantino, a guy who ran completely unopposed in his last 2 elections, suddenly looks very vulnerable. With a November 18 deadline fast approaching for candidates to enter the March 2027 presidential elections, this huge misstep has cracked the door wide open. Big names like PSG's Qatari president Nasser Al-Khelaifi and Canadian FIFA vice president Victor Montagliani are already being floated as potential direct challengers for the top job. Ultimately, that fierce UEFA-led resistance stopped the private equity sell-off dead in its tracks, proving that there are still some limits to the sheer commercialization of sports. But it leaves us with this final, incredibly important question to chew on. If the World Cup isn't FIFA's to sell, then who actually owns the beautiful game? Is it the federations? Is it the players, the private investors? Or is it the fans up there in the stands? Just think about that the next time you're forced to watch a mandatory hydration break. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helped clear up the massive drama going on behind the scenes of global football.